All right, everyone in Athens, don't look now, but Georgia is absolutely cooking when it comes to recruiting for the class of 2026. Going into the month of June, Georgia had just a measly 10 commits. But now the Bulldogs have secured 24 commits overall for the class of 2026. The Bulldogs have landed 14 prospects in the month of June. Do the math there. But the crazy thing is, 7 of those commits have come in the past week. So Georgia, we can say, is on an absolute heater. And just listen to some of these guys that Georgia has been able to reel in. 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis, absolute dog. I think that he's a future, franchise quarterback, if you will, for Georgia, because that's probably what we have to label it now in college football. 4-star defensive lineman J.J. Johnson, another dog. 4-star safety Jordan Smith, amongst many others. Most importantly, Georgia addressed the position that they need to address the most going into this offseason with this recruiting class. The running back position. And it shocked all of us last year because that had been the lifeblood, that had been the emphasis of the Georgia offense these past several years, is the running back room. But last year, it just really wasn't there. It wasn't as impactful as it was in 2023, 2022, 2021, the rest of the deal. But luckily for Georgia, they were able to land 4-star running back Jay Lamar. And that's huge. They can start to develop him, and he will be a factor for Georgia moving down the line. Of course, not this year just yet, but looking down the line, he will be very impactful for the Bulldogs. What's funny is when you go back and look at the team recruiting rankings on 24/7 Sports, back in January, February, and it popped up in my feed every week for some reason. So I'm like, oh, shit, let's look at this. You look at the most random, obscure teams on there. Like, you'll see Rutgers ranked high. Like, you'll see Illinois in the top 10. And those are fine programs. But you look at some of those rankings, and Georgia's not even on there. Alabama's not even on there. Ohio State, I don't think was even on there. And you look at the comments, everybody's like, oh, were these teams finally starting to fall off? No. June and July, they're the hotbed times for recruiting college football. This is when the big dogs, no pun intended here, rise from the dead and skyrocket back up to the top 10, even top 5 in some instances, within a week. Going on an absolute heater, kind of like Georgia did here. I mean, Georgia skyrocketed. At one point, they were unranked in the 2026 recruiting rankings. Now, they sit at number 2 in the nation, behind USC. But keep in mind that Georgia has a higher average grade than USC when it comes to their recruit to 2026. Their grade is 92.01. So it's a high-quality class that's coming into Athens. And I know that Georgia's another one of those programs where everybody kind of preys on their downfall. Well, hate to break it to y'all, it's not coming anytime soon. Because this team just continues to reload and reload and reload. This staff is incredible. Kirby Smart, still one of the best recruiters in the nation. Even though, yes, the transfer portal is very important. It's important to use your NIL resources to get guys from other teams. It's still all about player development at the University of Georgia. Building this thing from the ground up, starting these guys when they're freshmen, getting them in that player development program, and building them up as players, developing them for when it's their time to shine. I also want to point this out, too, because when I was doing my research here, this really stood out to me. Most of the guys that Georgia has secured in this class of 2026 come from either the state of Georgia or bordering and surrounding states. And I think that's really important because this is something that's not talked about enough. It lessens the learning curve. There's not as much to adapt to culturally if you're a player coming from Florida, coming from Georgia, coming from Alabama or Tennessee to Georgia. You're already in the Southeast. You understand the culture. You understand the way of life. Now, if you're coming from California, you're coming from New Jersey, you're coming from Michigan, Nevada, that's a huge learning curve. You have to get used to the way of life down there. Culturally, it's very different. A lot of these guys, they're from surrounding states. They know what it is. There will be a comfortability. I think Georgia is, yes, getting a lot of big names that are going to be the next stars of this program, the next legends of this program. But more importantly, I think Georgia's being strategic with the guys they're going out and getting, because I think their guys are going to have a lot of cohesion and they're going to gel together. And that's what's going to be the cornerstone of Georgia's success in these years moving forward. I can't wait to see what else Georgia does on the recruiting trail. There's some battles really starting to begin. Like there's guys out there who haven't committed yet that you have all these teams going after. Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon. Pop your popcorn, because it's going to be great to watch. And not to mention, Georgia and Alabama have been really battling out, because whenever Georgia lands a commitment, Bama responds with another one right there. And so that Chattahoochee River rivalry, that border rivalry, is huge. I can't wait to see that take shape and unfold over these next several weeks. But great stuff out of Georgia. They are heating up. They are cooking. 14 commitments in the month of June. 7 in the past week. 4 stars, 5 stars, quality guys. I love it. Let me know what y'all think about this situation in the comment section below. Thank y'all for watching. Have a great day.